Lenten Lunchtime Lesson with Father Andrew of the Society of the Divine Compassion. Tuesday in Holy Week, the test of truth. Let us see if his words be true, and let us try what shall befall in the ending of his life. Wisdom, chapter 2, verse 17. When our Lord Jesus Christ hung on the cross and cried in the language of his time, Eli, Eli, lama sabachthani, quoting the psalm, my God, why hast thou forsaken me? Some of those who were standing by said, let it be. Let's see whether Elias will come to save him. Certain others said he trusted in God. Let him deliver him if he will have him. In different ways, they said, let us see if his words be true. What were the words of our Lord Jesus Christ? We can sum them all up in the words of St. John's Gospel, chapter 3, beginning at verse 16. God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten Son, to the end that all who believe in him should not perish but have everlasting life. God so loved the world. Is it true? Life came to Jesus with its testing, and it comes to you and to me with so much success and so much failure, so much pleasure and so much pain, so much contact with others, and all through his life we went about doing good. There came from him always the manifestation of love and perfect integrity, so that although he never spoke of himself as other than the Son of Man, the manifestation of his life brought to those who were near him the conviction of a character altogether higher than that of a Son of Man. Though life brought to him poverty and pain and tested him in every way, yet life proved him true. Life proved that in whatever circumstances he might be, none could ever convince him of sin. None could ever draw from him anything that was not altogether perfect. Then hate came to prove whether his words were true. He came with a gospel of love. Well, said hate, let us confront him with treachery and suspicion and rejection. Let us whip him with scourges. Let us fashion him torture and a cross. Hate challenged him to prove if his words were true. And all those who watched by the cross and saw him tested in that furnace of affliction, the dark night of Calvary, saw how there came forth from him no words, but the words of love. The words that came from Jesus when he was so treated had in them no kind of reproach. Father, forgive them. His thought for his blessed mother, for the penitent thief. It was the putting of himself with all sufferers. It was the hungering of his heart for love as he cried, I thirst. And then the commending of his spirit into the hands of his Father. Hate brought everything that hate could bring to see if his words were true. And forth from him came no return but perfect love. Death came to prove if his words were true. Death came with its shadows, with its cold finger touched him, and he yielded up his royal soul and hung there dead. He was laid in the sepulchre, and none of the apostles expected he would rise. They had never taken that teaching in. He went down sadly to the tomb with no idea of the miracle of which they were to be witnesses. Mary of Magdala was the first to see him there in the garden, and to one after another his chosen witnesses he appeared. Death itself proved his words were true, because those who had seen him dead saw him also rise from the dead. But resurrection in itself is not divine. We do not worship Lazarus because he was raised from the dead. There's nothing more divine in that than in a virgin birth. It was our Lord's perfect light that made these things congruous. And when he came back on the morning in the garden of the resurrection, the disciples were indeed glad, for they saw the Lord. The resurrection was the crowning of a life, as the virgin birth was the fitting entry for such a life into the world. It was the reversal, by the higher court of God's judgment, of all futile mistakes of the court of Pilate. So life and hate and death all proved Jesus' words to be true. God is always calling us to a higher and purer loyalty. And as we are faithful to that call, we shall have our times of darkness and difficulty. We shall say to ourselves again and again, is it all true? We shall prove it true as we are faithful to our Lord, and we shall know his own spiritual experience. when thou hast overcome the sharpness of death, thou didst open the kingdom of heaven to all believers.